But before we get to all of that, I wanted to talk a little bit about corporate welfare, Nando. Little more prepared for our banter segment today than usual because, Tyson was in the news this week because it's being sued for wrongful death. Dozens of its employees have actually died during the pandemic. And now we're learning more details about the accusations against Tyson, the way that they treated their workers. We found out that in one meatpacking plant, the managers there were essentially taking bets on how many of their employees would get sick. They were packed into tight quarters. They were told to ignore their coronavirus-related symptoms and keep working. It's so disgusting. Like, reading the way that those workers have been treated is absolutely disgusting. And what's amazing is that the United States has been getting increasingly frustrated with China because we've been exporting our meat to China. And what do once our meat gets there? They test it. They test it to make sure it's safe. They don't want the, virus to surge again in their country. And so they've done all these temporary suspensions on meat imports coming in from the United States. And the US has the audacity to get upset about that. No, yeah. How about take a good hard look at how your workers are being treated? And, if the US government doesn't care about people's lives, which I think at this point is abundantly clear, and all they care about is the bottom line, helping out these corporations, ensuring that we're exporting meat to China, then it's hurting, your economic agenda as well. But they don't care. Let's just get mad at China and make them the bad guys. So, but related to that story, Nando, is a new study that was ordered by Bernie Sanders that I wanted to talk about. And it shows that both Walmart and McDonald's have the highest number of employees on government programs, including Medicaid and food stamps. And so this study was done by the Government Accountability Office, and it looks at data from 11 states in February of this year. The reason why they focused on 11 states is because these were the states that had the most reliable data pertaining to employees and, how many of them are on Medicaid, how many of them are on food stamps, and where do these individuals work. So here's what the Government Accountability Office found. Walmart was one of the top 4 employees of SNAP and Medicaid beneficiaries in every state. McDonald's was in the top 5 of employers with employees receiving federal benefits in at least 9 states. In the 9 states that responded about SNAP benefits, Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Maine, Massachusetts, Nebraska, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Washington, Walmart was found to have employed about 14,500 workers receiving the benefit, followed by McDonald's with 8,780. Let me give you some more numbers, Nando, and then I want your reaction. In 6 states that reported Medicaid enrollees, Walmart again topped the list with 10,350 employees, followed by McDonald's with 4,600. And, a common argument that we hear is, well, we're probably talking about part-time workers, right? Part-time workers who just can't make ends meet with their part-time jobs. And as a result, they have to rely on government assistance in order to, be able to pay some of their bills. But the reality is 70% of these people are full-time workers. They're working full-time for these companies that dodge taxes, and these employees have to rely on the government in order to survive. There's a huge problem there, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Walmart is obviously the largest employer in the United States. Like, more Americans work for Walmart than for any other corporation. It is, it's just such a fundamental failure of a social system that if you work full time, if you have a full-time job and you cannot make enough money to afford food and healthcare, that's just a fundamentally broken system that we live in. And, Liza Featherstone, a Jacobin writer, wrote a whole book about the difficulties in unionizing Walmart. That there's been long time struggles and attempts, and it's just they've never been able to do it. But that's what happens. I mean, that's why they do that. So they'd be able to pay their workers literally starvation wages. Right. Were it not for federal food assistance programs, they would literally starve. It's not just like a rhetorical trick. It's literally starvation wages. And, in the wake of the pandemic, like a handful of corporations, Walmart amongst them, just have seen their profits soar, obviously because as all other retail stores basically collapse, which is a trend that was already happening in the last several decades. It's just been accelerated by the pandemic. If people need to buy their basic goods, from Walmart more than ever. Same with Amazon, which has also seen its stock price surge. And Warren Gunnels, who is one of Bernie's top kind of staff members, just on Twitter is just constantly pointing out as regular people are seeing their wealth destroyed because of the pandemic, the billionaires who own Walmart, the Walton family, just keep getting richer. They just keep getting richer.
Yeah.
And it's just
I mean, it's incredible because as with previous crises, it's an opportunity for people who are already rich to get richer, right? Don't let a good crisis go to waste. And that's exactly what's happening here. And we're seeing that inequality, that gap really widen at this point. And so, you mentioned, the record profits, and I think it is important to get into some of those numbers. So first, just a few more statistics regarding the number of employees who have to rely on government aid because their employers don't pay them a living wage. In Arkansas, where Walmart was founded and maintains its headquarters, 1,318 were receiving SNAP benefits. That's 3.1% of the state's total. McDonald's, next on the list with 865 workers, made for 2% of the state's total. Another 3% of SNAP recipients in Georgia worked for Walmart. So imagine this highly profitable company employing a sizable chunk of the entire state's Medicaid and food stamp recipients. It's insane. And when it comes to profits, Walmart, for instance, reported $5.1 billion in net income for the third quarter of 2020 this week. As businesses have surged, or business has surged during the pandemic, McDonald's reported a net income of $1.76 billion over the same period. And again, we're talking about 70% of 21 million people receiving Medicaid and SNAP benefits. This is a huge volume of people who, again, are working full time and are not getting paid what they should get paid. And so we're subsidizing these companies, essentially. We, the taxpayers, are subsidizing what these companies refuse to pay their employees in a living wage. And we keep hearing from this propaganda machine that people who need government assistance are lazy, that they don't want to work, that they don't want to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, when in reality, they're working full-time jobs.
Yeah, and that right there, the profits, I mean, that's what labor power does. I mean, there is a pie, and it either goes to capital, the owners, or it goes to labor, the workers. And if the workers are organized and there is a labor union that can fight for a greater share of that pie, then they will get it, but without that, then the owners have just all the ability to take as much of that pie as basically they want because they have a gun to your head.
Right.
And in this case, they're actually even just relying on the state to subsidize low wages, which is just absolutely crazy. I tell some of my friends back in Spain, when they were asking why did Hillary lose to Trump or whatever, when I explained to them that the sort of left of center candidate in the United States for the sort of left party in a two-party system was a former board member of Walmart, the largest employer in the United States, they look at me like I'm lying, and I'm like, no, this is true. Hillary Clinton was on the board of Walmart. Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, which is the head where Walmart is headquartered. And it's it's so mind blowing to them that would even be available, that would even be a path to political power from a left politician. It's hard to overstate the importance of Walmart as a corporation, not just in terms of the amount of workers it employs, but also just it's become kind of like a de facto, almost like town square for tons of small communities and towns in the middle of in rural America. If I've driven across the United States, and it's kind of depressing to just see town after town after town, which is just hollowed out completely. And then there's just a giant Walmart that it's really crazy.
I remember for the 2016 RNC, which was in Cleveland, like TYT did not plan ahead and did not have enough money to actually book a hotel close to the venue. So we had to drive out pretty far. And so the area that we were in, it seemed pretty rural. I can't remember what it was called at this point. But you're absolutely right. The only thing that was in that town was this giant Walmart superstore. And it was bleak. It was pretty depressing. And since we're talking about Walmart, it is important to note that while these states are subsidizing these companies because they refuse to pay their workers a living wage, they don't pay back into the system. They find ways to avoid doing that. Here's just one headline from Quartz. Walmart dodged up to $2.6 billion in U.S. tax through a fictitious Chinese entity, former executive says. And so, oh God, China, Walmart
baby.
And the Walton family received tax breaks and taxpayer subsidies estimated at more than $7.8 billion a year. But don't worry, if you're an employee or you're considering employment at one of these companies, at least a few years ago, McDonald's did have a hotline to help their workers. And here's how that went down.
McResource Line, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm Nancy. I wanted more information about the help that I need.
I can give you a number that will be helpful. You can ask about things like food pantries. Are you on SNAP? SNAP is Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Food Stamps. Do you have kids? Are you?
Yeah, I have 2 kids.
Yeah. You would most likely be eligible for SNAP benefits.
Mentioning the food, I didn't know about this.
It's a federal program. Federal money comes down to the states, and the states administer it.
And what about the doctor?
Did you try to get on Medicaid? Medicaid is a federal program. It's health coverage for low-income or no-income adults and children.
It's so
their
dystopian.
helpline
it's
amazing.
Dystopian.
It's like,
yeah.
Here's what we'll do. We'll teach you about how you can apply for government assistance. Don't expect your boss or your employer to pay you a living wage, even if you're a full-time worker, and F off. That was the helpline.
Yeah. So it's really bleak.